From the great state of Texas, Judiciary Committee, ranking on crime, our dear friend, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee.
What a day we have had. And I ask you just for a moment, I know that we have been listening to resounding voices. But you know, I understand in many of the books of faith, sacred ground can be made where we stand. Amen. And I ask you, as Rabbi Pessimer and Reverend Deere is here, and I've ordained her, your Chairman Brock, I've ordained President Brooks. I know that Reverend Barber, who has restored us, along with the NAACP presidents. So I ask for a moment that we be silent. For sacred ground and words give us the power to withstand the wall. Just for a moment. I thank you for that. I am not in any way ordained, but there's something about being taught by your grandmother. And so as I look at you and the 1,000-mile walkers or the 1-mile walkers, as I embrace Hillary Shelton and the litany of senators who came out of their offices in the midst of non-nuclear proliferation debates and divisiveness, begin to think of the Jericho story where we were told to march around and bring the walls down. I don't know if there's any marches around here that will bring the walls of divisiveness and obstructionism that some have thought they have come to this Capitol to do. Let me pay tribute to young people and say to you that your movement and your message is to be applauded. We should not distract from you being instigators, and people of different backgrounds do not be offended by young people saying Black Lives Matter. There is no ugliness in that. Yeah. We embrace you as a human family. Yeah. I am gratified for faces that don't look like me that are in this vast place. I'm gratified for the powerful message of Rabbi. I felt like I was floating in the Old Testament. Thank you so very much. And I am recognizing that we cannot allow folk to divide us. Thank you, Larry Cohen, for stepping out, being that progressive voice. Thank all of labor, and forgive me for shouting out. I see CWA, but you gotta realize I got a man out here, Claude Cummings, the regional president, a constituent, and I want to be able to go home. But I want to thank the faith community, because as a younger person, I worked with the SCLC and they embraced the NAACP. We were not divided. We knew who had a spot. They put me in the streets of North Carolina and South Carolina with James Orange and working with Hosea Williams. Some of you know those names. I was a pipsqueak. But I understood place, learning. This is what you have done, Brother Brooks. You brought us to a learning place again. We have come to this place with your chairman and board of directors, and thank you. You know, 5 loaves and fishes, y'all found it and the money came. I love my chairman, Brock. She was with me the other night. Let me get my words. I am delighted to be on the Judiciary Committee with John Conyers, Bobby Scott, and now be the ranking member. When I got on as the first woman ever to serve in that capacity, I said, we're going to breathe life in this idea of criminal justice reform. We will not walk with our heads bowed down, scared. We don't want to talk about crime and criminal justice reform. And so as you've heard about the voting rights, of which, by the way, let me say to you, I sat on that committee twice, but particularly in 2006 and 7, when Hillary and NAACP and everybody worked together, and we had 15,000 pages of testimony to the United States Supreme Court. I hate to say it, you were wrong. 15,000 to say that the Voting Rights Act needed to be. I support the advancement, but I also want you to know that the VZ versus the state of Texas, we brought down the worst voter ID law that there can be, and they're trying to block us from having that law be knocked down. So there is a moment to be sacred and silent in order to restore yourself and to stand on the life of middle passage, to go forth here and take your shoes and your march for justice and put your footprint on the halls of Congress. Are you ready to do that? For let me say this, as we have dug into the weeds of criminal justice reform, it is an unbalanced, it is a discriminatory, it is a demolishing of lives system. It does not uplift, it does not keep you safe, it destroys. And so I ask you, as you walk for voting rights, remember the issues of criminal justice reform. 1 point, jail reduces work time of young people over the next decade by 25 to 30% versus those who are not incarcerated. We introduced the ban to box just a few days ago with senators and members of Congress. What is that funny word? We don't want you to be a felon and not have food in a house. We want to be able to get you interviewed for a job. And then if they find that you are not capable of the job, then my brothers and sisters, you can go on to the next person. Yes. But how do they get a job? I went to a barbecue place in Houston, Texas. I'm telling it. And the brother there working for 11 years said, I'm a felon, I can't get an apartment. He had a job. He wasn't on the streets. Congress, listen to this. Then I want to say to you that we have taken on, and let me thank my ranking, I call him Chairman John Conyers with a great history, my friend Bobby Scott. We have said that air must be breathed into judiciary, and no matter what the folk are saying on the other side, that we're not going to let go. So I leave you with these 3 initiatives because I started out by thanking the young people. You need to certainly know a young man in New York. He had his own civil rights, if I might say, stand. Caleb, a young man that went to Rikers Island at 16 for a stolen backpack of a person who was not in the country when the backpack was stolen. Well, I don't know how the backpack got stolen. I could have said I found it. But he went to Rikers Island and went into solitary confinement for almost 2.5 years. 16. He took a stand. He said he wasn't guilty. The lawyer forgot he was there, was overloaded. I love you lawyers, but you know how it is. Overloaded. Poor mama got on a bus as much as she can to go over that bridge to Rikers Island. Just think of it. Think of Middle Passage giving his life because he wanted voting rights and young people to be able to have a future. Caleb fought against being convicted. He finally got out and took his life. I'm banning legislation to ban solitary confinement for our young people. You need to be fighting for criminal justice reform. We've introduced legislation to ensure that we have alternative sentencing for young people. Not jail, but sit them somewhere else, at home, somewhere. Yeah. And then finally, we want to make sure that they can block their records. Do you know I'm age 16 and at 24 I've got to tell somebody I was arrested? What life are you giving me?
That ain't right.
So I started by saying this is sacred ground.
Yeah.
I was moved by the story of Middle Passage. I don't think I'll ever get through with it. I think he's going to be on the floor of the House. I'm going to be calling his name. I'm going to be in the Judiciary Committee calling Middle Passage's name. One of the most hallowed rooms because it's where justice is supposed to be rendered and rolling down like a mighty river. But I will say to you today, I'm infused with the story of Jericho. I'm moved by the sacredness of this time. I'm grateful to all of you with the NAACP taking its historical role, matching it with our friends from the Christian and Jewish and Muslim community, from labor, from our environmental community and our activists. Oh, what a mighty river this is. And I just want to ask you, are you going to be ready for getting the voting rights restored, criminal justice, and the economic opportunities of jobs and housing? Remember, don't say old-fashioned, talk 21st century, and we are going to be the blockbusters for making sure that your justice feet walk these halls and we get legislation passed to the President of the United States, and President Barack Obama, before his term ends, will sign a mighty reformation of the United States of America. We will stand no more for injustice. We will stand and march for freedom and justice. Thank you, President Obama. I'm going to be there for that signature. Are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? We will be there together. Justice reigns today. God bless you. God bless our veterans. God bless the United States of America.